R was the way it was written up until 1861, because it was plural before 1861. Now, we can't have a lesson on the original intent unless we say something about the Declaration of Prohibitions. Now, what is the Declaration of Prohibitions? That's probably what they should have named the Bill of Rights. When we look at this for a moment, you'll see that it's more a prohibition than it is a granting of rights. We should say something about this. The Bill of Rights is not a declaration of rights, but rather is more like a declaration of prohibitions. Our founding fathers that wrote the Constitution felt it was unnecessary, would be dangerous, and would be incompatible with the Philadelphia Constitution. Now, where does that language come from? The Federalist Papers. They explain why they didn't want a Bill of Rights, why it was unnecessary and dangerous. One of the outspoken individuals on that was Alexander Hamilton. This is an interesting concept I read in a book by Kendall and Carey, American Traditions. The matter of whether or not to include a Bill of Rights in the Constitution was brought up before the Philadelphia Convention and was rejected unanimously. There wasn't a delegate there that wanted a Bill of Rights. Most of us are not aware of that. We just hear gushy statements made in high school and college textbooks about the wonderful Bill of Rights. Would it be a good question to ask, why did our founding fathers reject the Bill of Rights at the beginning? Why did they not want a Bill of Rights? I'm not going to ask. If I let you answer that question, nobody can hear you on the DVD, so we'll let you talk about it afterwards on the way home. The proposed Bill of Rights, they suggested 189 coming from the states, 189 suggestions. Now, some of you remember the bit of history here that there were some people that said if you don't have a Bill of Rights, we don't want the Constitution. There was a discussion going on. Eventually, 189 suggestions were sent in, and those suggestions were boiled down by James Madison into 17. Many of the suggestions were overlapping or much the same. So he then boiled it down to 17, and he presented those 17 to Congress, and Congress approved 12. The 12 then passed by Congress were sent to the states to see if the states would ratify. Remember, at that time the states were still free, sovereign, independent states. 10 of these amendments were ratified, or 10 then were passed. This became known as the Bill of Rights, or the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Most people don't know that there's a preamble to the Bill of Rights. Now, we all know the preamble to the Constitution. We've all heard of that. But there's a preamble to the Bill of Rights, and if we would review that preamble, you'll find it in your booklet on page 20. Turn to it. Page 20. Everybody should have received a booklet. Now, the preamble to the Bill of Rights is considered apparently insignificant because most constitutions leave it out. They just start quoting the 10 articles, but without quoting the preamble. That's kind of like not complete, because you'll see now that this is very important to understand what happened. The conventions of a number of states, having at the time of their adopting the Constitution, expressed a desire, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, that further declaratory and restrictive clauses should be added. Okay, what just happened here? A convention of a number of states expressed a desire to prevent misconstruction or abuse. They wanted to add more declaratory clauses. Were they going to change the Constitution's meaning by these 10 amendments? No. They're going to prevent a misunderstanding of the meaning. They're going to add some more explanations so no one will misunderstand. And as extending the ground of public confidence in the government will best ensure the beneficent ends of its institution. So remember the words, in order to prevent misconstruction or abuse of its powers, further declaratory and restrictive clauses were added. That's the key to the preamble, to the Bill of Rights. Really, they are a declaration of prohibitions. For example, the first one, Congress shall make no law. Now, is that expressing a right or a prohibition? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's a prohibition. No No soldier shall be housed in the homes of the people. Prohibition. Shall not be violated. No person shall be held. These are prohibitions. That quotation is a long one. I deleted it just this last day, just yesterday or so, and I will take you to the summary of that long quotation from Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 84. You can read it on your own. Here's the summary of it, referring to the Bill of Rights. A Bill of Rights would be dangerous. He argues and explains that in the Federalist Papers. It would afford a colorable pretext to claim more powers than were granted. A colorable pretext is like a lie. People would be able to come up with a reason why they have more powers than were granted. A dishonest reason that isn't really there. We should not declare that things shall not be done which there is no power to do. See, in the Bill of Rights, it gives us certain things in there that there's no power granted in the enumerated powers, and he says don't bring them up in the Bill of Rights if they didn't grant them any power. Why should we say there should be freedom of the press when we never granted them any power to do anything with the press? So Hamilton argues. It will furnish to men disposed to usurp a plausible pretense for claiming power. Do you think there's anybody disposed to usurp and they want a plausible pretense for claiming power? Yeah, that happened. The doctrine of constructive powers will be abused by an injudicious zeal for bills of rights. Oh my goodness! Some of the high school history books I've read, an injudicious zeal. Oh, the gushy statements they'll make. Oh, how wonderful it is we have a Bill of Rights. Why, we would lose all of our freedom if it wasn't for the Bill of Rights. We didn't even need a Bill of Rights. The Constitution is the Bill of Rights. In order to prevent misconstruction or abuse, they added further declaratory clauses, but they certainly didn't help us much. Forgive me for saying that. We had probably been better off had they not had a Bill of Rights. I don't say that very often in public. And you're thinking, what's he saying? What's he saying up there? You go meditate on it. How the Supreme Court has abused the Bill of Rights and twisted and skewed and made them mean things they don't mean and applied them to the states. They didn't start doing that until 1925 in the Gitlow case. They didn't even apply to the states at all. They were only written to suppress and stop the federal government until the Supreme Court started usurping power through arrogation of powers. You've learned a new word, see, arrogation. Hamilton was prophetic. What he said happened. There remains but one other view of this matter to conclude the point. The truth is, after all the declamations we have heard, that the Constitution is itself, in every rational sense and to every useful purpose, a Bill of Rights. The several Bills of Rights in Great Britain form its Constitution, and conversely, the Constitution of each state is its Bill of Rights. And the proposed Constitution, if adopted, will be the Bill of Rights of the Union. The Constitution is the Bill of Rights. That's where your rights are spelled out. That's James Madison from this Federalist Papers. That was the original intent. And I'm not sure how to write this in English. I put was and I thought is. How do I put this up here? Well, I have just